Going to tie it all in together, something like this, and into the main loom. Job done. So, part 2 of the wiring. Now, we've finished up the main harness, so that's completed, ready for testing. We just need to do the other parts of the loom. Now, I've got this 7-core trailer wire that's going to run all the wires down to the back for the lights and fuel pump, and also all the wires around to the front for the fan and lights there. So we're just going to run these and then terminate all the ends with plugs, where I want the fuel pump to come out, where I want the other tail light to come out, as it comes up to the front, where the takeoff will be for the brake lights, and then where it will end and terminate into the plugs for the main loom. Now I'm going to do a similar thing for the front, so I'll start off here where I'm going to have the plug for the headlight. I'll mark where the indicator stalk's going to come out, where the fan's going to come out, where the other indicator stalk will come out, where the other headlight plug will be, and then all the way back to where it terminates. So I've got that stripped back. Now, I've got 7 wires here. I'm going to use, well, these 4, red, green, yellow and brown for the lights, because brown is normally your park lights or tail lights, red is normally your brake lights, yellow and green are left and right indicators. So they're going to be just used for the tail lights. The black is going to be running the earth. Normally it's white on trailers, but I'm using black for earth in this section because I want to. Now, the black I'm going to just shorten it, so I've got about 75 mils. I'll rejoin that down here, so then the black will be 2 tails coming out, and that will then go with 4 of these wires to the right hand indicator, and then we're also going to pair it up with the other side of the black will come to the white wire, and that will be the fuel pump. I'll use the blue wire, it'll come back here somewhere and it'll come out and also tee into the black, and that will then become a reverse light, because, well, the gearbox has outputs to tell me when it's in reverse, so if I end up wiring that up, I'll have a wiring set for that. So that'll be that section. Then it'll come across here a bit further. I'll split it open and I'll tee into the red, brown and green and black down here, and then that will be a plug for the other tail light. And then I'll come down even further and I'll split it open and I'll just cut the red wire and put a plug on each end of the cut, and then that'll be power coming from the battery through the brake light switch on the brake master cylinder. So there'll be power coming out in the red wire through the brake master cylinder, and then that'll go straight to the tail lights, and that should work. And then from there it will come up a bit further and get chopped, and that will be where it's joined into this main loom. There will be one of these plugs, and one of these wires will tie into the white wire, so that will then send power for the fuel pump when the ignition's on. And then when I run the wire coming the other way, it'll be very much the same, but the white wire will plug into this one, which will then be the thermofan, and that will be on accessories. Well, that's the plan anyway. I'm going to get started on this and see what happens. I got the first 3 plugs done. So it's a tail light, a reverse light, and the fuel pump. So that's going to come to about there. So the fuel pump can plug in. The tail lights will be here somewhere with the lead coming through to plug in. So, and I'm going to put a reverse light on the back here. Right here for the other tail light. So we'll do that.
Here we go.
Alright, so the end of the loom is all terminated there. So I've got a plug for the fuel pump, one for the tail lights and one for the reverse light. Because remember I had those little LED lights. They ended up being just straight white and they're very bright. So that'll get wired in for a reverse light. So I'll just have one on one side because I can. So that's there. Wire comes back through here. I've split a section off the loom and then tied into 4 wires, red, black, brown and yellow. So then that's the tail light for this side. So from there it'll go forward. It'll have a P-clamp through the bottom bolt of the bearing block to hold the wire so it can't go anywhere near the rotating disc. And from there forward we come all the way up here, and well, that's just in front of the master cylinder. So I'm going to split it off there, pull the red wire through a bit, cut him, and then put both sides of the one wire into through the master cylinder pressure switch. Now from there forward the red line will go to the accessories. So whenever the key is on, it will have power going to the brake light switch. So then if the pedal's pushed, it will turn on the brake lights. The rest of the lights will all be run off a separate switch, and we'll get to that later. So mark that there. So that's the next bit. Alright, so that's the rear loom sorted. So I've just left with this bunch of wires here. So I'm going to do the front loom, and they're going to be using pretty much the same colours. So we're going to have red and green going to indicators, brown will be park lights, and blue will be the high beam. So the blue wire at the front is going to the headlights, and the blue wire going to the back is going to be the reverse lights. So they're not going to be wired up together, where all the others will pretty much be tied together and then go off to their respective switches or relays. Well, the black's going to be the earth that goes all the way through everything. The white is going to go to the thermofan. So we're going to get started on the front loom. So it's going to be pretty much the same. There's going to be a 4-pin plug at the start. The loom's going to come down the front support out to the front of the chassis. There's going to be the pin out going there to the indicator and the thermofan in one spot. Then it'll go across the front of the chassis to the other indicator plug, and then it'll go along the chassis, have a long wire come out for the other headlight, and then it'll run along the bottom of the chassis all the way through to the same point where the other one is, and then they'll both go into the center console together. So that's the plan. That's the front half of the loom done. That took quite a while. Really don't know how long, but yeah, ages. So basically this middle section will mount just here in front of the steering bearing. We'll have this plug will come up this side for the headlights. There's a plug goes up the other side for the headlights. And there's a plug each side for indicator and thermofan to come out to the front of the pivot point, because, well, thermofan and indicators are all going to be mounted on the bonnet, so that's why they're set up that way. Now all I have to do is run the rest of the cable back along the chassis and into the center, and then combine it to the rear loom. So at this point we're just going to tape the front loom and the rear loom into position, and then we can tape them together where they need to go, and then once they get up to here I've got a point of reference, so then I can then wire it into the main loom. I've laid the two looms out in the chassis, pegged them out where they need to go. Now, this is where they both join, and this is where they go into the center console. So, I might strip both looms back to here, and then tie in all the wires that need to be joined up, and then just have about 8 wires come through here instead of 14, and then that way this bit will be smaller and there'll be less clutter inside this. There, I've got the two looms taped together nice and tight. I've stripped everything off, and now I've got a huge bundle of wires. Good thing I've written down here the front half of the loom and the rear half of the loom, what colours the wires are and what they actually go to. So for instance, this yellow wire is in the rear half of the loom, so it's the left hand rear indicator. This yellow wire is the right hand front indicator, so they just need to come together here and be spliced together there, and then this part of wire goes away, this goes into the center console. Red wire, that's on the front half of the loom, so that's the low beam wire, where this red wire is the brake light wire, so can't really just join those together, so they're separate. Blues, both doing different jobs, they're separate. Whites, one is going to the thermofan, one is going to the fuel pump, so they're separate. Blacks are both earth, so they're staying together. Greens are the right hand indicators, so they're getting joined, and browns are the park lights, front and rear, so they're going to get joined. So all this stuff goes back there. So we're going to stagger the joints out along it, because there's going to be 4 joins, so probably 25 mils apart, and that will save us from having a big lump in one spot, which can cause issues, and we're trying to avoid that. So just untangle all this first and then start cutting. I've got those 4 lots of wires, the indicators, the park lights and the earth from the front and rear of the loom, all tied in together, so I've only got 4 wires coming through now. And these other wires here, I've got another 6 wires that all go to individual things. So what I'm going to do is use the masking tape and label on the end of each of these what they are, and then I'll be able to go through and cover the whole loom through to where it gets into the console, and then just run these into whatever they need to there. Now it's easier to write while it's still on the roll and then peel it off. Right here. And then just go through and label them all. I've got all those done. I don't have the heat shrink to go on here, which I really need that before I go much further with any of this. Now, all I can really use on this loom at the moment is these 3 wires, which is the fuel pump, the fan, and the earth. Now they'll just hook up to these 2 wires for the relays, and then that will be enough to get the cubman to run. Pretty much everything else here is just for lighting, and I don't have the switches for that, so I can't do anything more there. I don't have the plugs to wire these onto here, so I'm not going to do that tonight. Yeah, I did wire up the plug onto the fan, so that's ready to go. But yeah, I've run out of components and I've run out of time, so I've got to go edit this together, and yeah. So I've not really shown a great deal of the process of doing this because I'm not the person you should be learning about wiring from. I can do it, but I don't have all the right tools to actually do it properly. I mean, fancy crimpers, well, these don't actually work to crimp the terminals. So what I've been doing is hand crimping all these with the pair of pliers and then soldering them. And yeah, shouldn't really solder wiring looms in cars. It's just not the right thing to do. So that's why I haven't really shown any of the details. But yeah, I'm definitely just going to finish this loom up off camera, but I've got enough done that we should be able to get the cubman to run once I get another couple of plugs and some heat shrink. So that's it for this video. As always, customize everything.